Hello there. We have been talking about different kinds of writing, and today we are going to talk about a particular kind of writing called a fable. So, you might have heard about some fables in the past. There are different kinds of fables that are famous, and you might know some of the ones that I'm going to talk about today. What do we know about fables? What kind of information do we know about fables? Well, I can think of a few different things that I know about fables. First off, a fable is a brief fictional story. So that means it's pretend because it's fiction, and it's brief, so it's not very long. Usually in a fable, there are two or three main characters, and those main characters are usually animals. Another very important thing to know about a fable is that a fable teaches a lesson or a moral. Here's an example of a fable: The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Another example would be The Tortoise and the Hare. And another example of a fable would be The Fox and the Crow. So many fables have been written in the past by a man named Aesop. Aesop was a man who wrote lots and lots of fables from the time he was a little boy. Let's talk a little bit about what we know about Aesop. So Aesop lived in ancient Greece long time ago. He was born around 540 BC. He was born into slavery, which means that he was owned by somebody else. He created and shared many different kinds of stories, and many of those were often fables. It is known, although we're not 100% sure, there is a story that says that he became so famous for his storytelling skills that he was freed from slavery. And his stories are collected together and referred to as Aesop's Fables. So today we're going to read an Aesop fable called The Lion and the Mouse. This might be one that you've heard before, and if you haven't, then you're going to enjoy it for the first time today. And if you have, you'll probably look at it with some fresh eyes. A lion lay asleep in the forest, his great head resting on his paws. A timid little mouse came upon him unexpectedly, and in her fright and haste to get away, ran across the lion's nose. Roused from his nap, the lion laid his huge paw angrily on the tiny creature to kill her. "Spare me," begged the poor mouse. "Please let me go, and someday I will surely repay you." The lion was much amused to think that a mouse could ever help him, but he was generous and finally let the mouse go. Some days later, while stalking his prey in the forest, the lion was caught in the toil of a hunter's net. Unable to free himself, he filled the forest with his angry roaring. The mouse knew the voice and quickly found the lion struggling in the net. Running to one of the great ropes that bound him, she gnawed it until it parted, and soon the lion was free. "You laughed when I said I would repay you," said the mouse. "Now you see that even a mouse can help a lion." So we're going to create a little table that's going to help us organize the different things that were happening in the fable. And we're going to organize it according to a few different characteristics. We have a box that says characters, so we're going to be writing down the characters in this story. We have a box that says setting, so we're going to talk about the setting of the story, which means where did it take place? We are going to identify the problem in the story, and sometimes there's more than one problem. There's at least one usually, though. In order to have a story, there is a problem of some sort. We're going to also identify the solution. And in this case with fables, we are going to identify the lesson, because there's always a lesson or a moral contained in the fable for us to learn from. So let's think about this, and we're going to fill this out together. The Lion and the Mouse. So who were the characters in this story? Remember at the beginning, we talked about that there are usually 2 or 3 characters, and they are usually animals. And in this case, it was the lion and the mouse. Where was the setting? If you look back on the picture or think back in your mind, the setting was some sort of a forest. We definitely know it wasn't on the beach or in a hot desert, because we didn't hear anything about that, but we definitely saw trees and heard about them. What is a problem that we encountered? The mouse was about to be eaten by the lion. And what was the solution to this problem? So the mouse promises to repay the lion if he is to be let go. What's another problem that we found? The lion got caught in a net. What was the solution to that problem? The mouse bites through the net to free the lion. What was the moral of this story? This is a really wonderful and empowering moral and lesson for children to hear. And that is, it doesn't matter how big or small you are, you can help others. So that's a really great lesson for a child, you to know that you can have an impact and you can change things around you, even if you're a young person and you haven't grown up yet to do things that you see adults doing. You can still affect the world around you and make it a better place and help people. So now we are going to do another fable. This is another very familiar one that many of you will probably know. It is called The Tortoise and the Hare. A hare was making fun of the tortoise one day for being so slow. "Do you ever get anywhere?" he asked with a mocking laugh. "Yes," replied the tortoise, "and I get there sooner than you think. I'll run you a race and prove it." The hare was much amused at the idea of running a race with the tortoise, but for the fun of the thing he agreed. So the fox, who had consented to act as judge, marked the distance and started the runners off. The hare was soon far out of sight, and to make the tortoise feel deeply how ridiculous it was for him to try to race with a hare, he lay down beside the course to take a nap until the tortoise should catch up. The tortoise, meanwhile, kept going slowly but steadily, and after time passed the place where the hare was sleeping. But the hare slept on very peacefully, and when at last he did wake up, the tortoise was near the goal. The hare now ran his swiftest, but he could not overtake the tortoise in time. That's a really familiar story now, isn't it? So let's draw a table for the tortoise and the hare. So who are the characters in this? And let's describe them a little bit. So we know we have the tortoise and the hare, and we can see that the tortoise is level-headed, whereas the hare is overconfident. So the hare is extra confident in its abilities to be able to go faster than the tortoise. And where is the setting? Where does this take place? Does it take place in the ocean? No. The tortoise and the hare takes place on a road. What is a problem that we encounter? The hare teases the tortoise for being so slow. What is the solution? The tortoise suggests a race. What's another problem we encounter? The hare takes a nap. And a solution, the tortoise wins the race. And what is the lesson that we learn from this? A lesson we learn is the race is not always won by the fastest runner. Slow and steady wins the race. So, if you are learning at school with a teacher, or if you are learning at home and doing some homeschooling with your teacher or your mom might want to tell you to slow down a little bit, and that when you go slow and steady, that you'll actually go faster than if you rush through something. And if you take your time, the work that you have will be much more quality as well. So this is a very important lesson that people want to teach children. And so fables are a way to tell a story that's fun and engaging, and you learn a lesson without being directly told you need to slow down or you shouldn't go fast, because a lot of times we don't listen to directives when people tell us what to do. But if people share information and lessons through stories, they're much more interesting to learn. So, what are some life lessons you have learned that could be used in a fable? Why don't you think about different things that you've learned? I'm going to pause for just a moment for you to think, and then I'm going to share some of my ideas. And you can also feel free to pause the lesson while you are doing that. Okay, here's what I have come up with. Here's a lesson that I know I have learned in my lifetime. Challenges make you stronger. You can write a fable about an animal that has gone through a challenge that was really hard to overcome, and then they overcome it at the end. And the lesson or moral can be that challenges make you stronger. Let's look at another life lesson that I know I have learned about. Making mistakes is a part of life, and making mistakes is really okay. And so you can create a fable with an animal talking to another animal about the mistakes that they made, or they're having an experience of making mistakes and how they were able to incorporate their learning into their life after making those mistakes. Another good lesson is it's good to help a friend in need. You can tell a fable with two animals. One of them maybe is stuck because they need something. Maybe their foot got caught under a rock and they need some help to be pulled out, or maybe they are needing some food and the other animal helps them. And the lesson or moral of the story is it's good to help a friend in need. Another very important lesson that comes up in life is that if you are not honest with your friends, they will stop believing you. This is a little bit about the story The Boy Who Cried Wolf, as if it has this lesson in there. If you are familiar with that fable, the boy kept saying, there's a wolf, and there really wasn't. And everyone kept running because he got attention from that. And eventually they stopped running and the wolf really did come, but nobody listened. And so that was a really interesting learning for the boy in that story. And you can create a similar but different fable using this very similar lesson or moral. So for follow-up, you're going to be writing your own fable, and there will be follow-up cards with different ideas of different kinds of fables that you can write. But let's review again the components of a fable so that you have that fresh in your mind. Remember that a fable is a brief fictional story, so it's not long. You will never see a fable that's longer than a page. In fact, they're probably even half a page. So for those of you who enjoy writing brief things, a fable is a great way to get in some really exciting and interesting writing that isn't necessarily super long, but can be very impactful still. In your fable, there will be 2 or 3 main characters, and those characters will usually be animals. Every once in a while, a human appears in the fable, but even if there is a human, there should be an animal or two for that human to be talking to. And the animals talk in fables as well. And if you notice, or if you did notice as I was reading about fables earlier, Like we'll say fox, tortoise, hare, and usually they will capitalize those words in a fable because we don't know their names. So we just capitalize fox, tortoise, hare, or whatever animal is in there. The last thing to think about is that a fable teaches a lesson or a moral. So you might want to think about lessons you've learned. And sometimes it's easy to think about things that you know that your parents have talked about at home that they want you to learn, some important lessons, or teachers or other important adults that you look up to in life. And if you're not really sure, you can ask around, what are some good lessons that kids learn when they're younger that help them when they grow up? And this can be a great way to springboard you into writing some interesting and exciting and engaging fables. So I hope you enjoy writing fables because it's so much fun to write about animals talking and overcoming obstacles and adversities and learning a lesson along the way. We have a lot more lessons at Guidepost with activities that you can do at home or at school. One of my favorites is in the video description below.